In 1840, a single book dropped a philosophical bomb on the 19th century. It had an idea so radical it still challenges us today. We're diving into Pierre-Joseph Proudhon's incendiary work, What is Property? Let's get right into it. And there it is, the one sentence that made Proudhon famous and, well, pretty infamous. Property is robbery. Just 3 words, but man, they carry an explosive charge. I mean, could your house, your car, the money in your bank account, could it all be based on a kind of theft? It's a statement that's designed to stop you in your tracks and make you question everything you think you know about ownership.
So that's the big question, right? How on earth could a philosopher, a man of reason, make a claim that sounds so completely out there? How can owning something be the same thing as stealing it? To get it, we've got to follow his logic step by step.
To really unpack Proudhon's shocking declaration, we can't just take those 3 words at face value. See, this guy wasn't just trying to get a rise out of people. He was building a really careful philosophical argument. And the whole thing, the entire idea, it all hinges on the specific meaning he gives to his words. You know, the secret to his whole argument isn't really in the word robbery. It's in the word property. Proudhon says that we've basically mashed together 2 totally different concepts under that one name. And to see his point, we have to pull them apart.
And this, right here, this brings us to the absolute core of his argument, the huge difference between property and possession. If you get this distinction, you get Proudhon. He wasn't against you having stuff. Actually, he was a fierce defender of your right to possess things. It was property that he had in his sights.
So what did he mean by possession? Well, for him, it's super simple and totally fair. It's rooted in direct use. Think about a farmer who's actually out there working her field, or a carpenter using his own tools. That's possession. It's legitimate ownership that's tied directly to you living there or you personally working with it. It's your right to enjoy the fruits of your own labor. Totally makes sense, right?
Property, on the other hand, now that's a whole different beast. He says property is the right to profit from something you don't personally use. Think about a landlord charging you rent for an apartment they never step foot in. That's what Proudhon called the right of increase, the ability to get richer without actually working, just by owning something that other people need to use. You could almost call it the original critique of passive income.
So let's put them side by side, because this is the key. Property is abstract. It's exploitative. That's the right of increase. Possession, though, is concrete and legitimate. That's the right of use. For Proudhon, one system always leads to inequality, while the other leads to liberty. And that's exactly why he calls property robbery, but possession, he calls that freedom. They're literally polar opposites in his mind. Proudhon uses this brilliant analogy from the ancient Roman writer Cicero to explain it. Think about going to a movie theater. When you buy a ticket, you possess your seat for the next 2 hours. It's yours to use. But you don't have property rights over it. You can't, rent it out to the person standing in the aisle. The theater owner, though, they hold the property. They don't use a single seat, but they profit from everyone else's use of them. That's the difference, right there. Now, for Proudhon, this wasn't just some abstract theory he cooked up. He argued that if you just look at human history, you can see this exact same kind of robbery playing out again and again and again. The names just change. He saw this clear historical line. Back in the Roman Empire, masters literally owned other human beings as property and just took everything they produced. Then, in the Middle Ages, you had feudal lords who owned all the land as property, forcing serfs to work it for them. And in his own time, he saw capitalists who owned the factories as property, getting rich off the labor of the proletariat. The system changed its clothes, but for him, the fundamental relationship, one class profiting from the labor of another, was exactly the same. Okay, so if this system of property is the root of the problem, what did Proudhon suggest we do about it? I mean, what's the fix? This leads us to another famously misunderstood word that was totally central to his vision for a better society. Proudhon's solution was a society he called order without rulers. Now, if that sounds like a total contradiction, you're not alone. But for Proudhon, it was the only possible outcome of a truly just world. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. When we hear the word anarchy, our brains immediately go to images of chaos, violence, buildings on fire, a world with no rules. That's the popular idea for sure. But it is the exact opposite of what Proudhon, the very first person to proudly call himself an anarchist, actually meant. Just look at this quote. the union of order with anarchy. He smashes these two seemingly opposite words together on purpose to make us question our assumptions. What he's arguing is that real, genuine social order doesn't come from a ruler forcing laws on you from the top down. It comes from free agreements made between people from the bottom up.
So for Proudhon, anarchy just meant the absence of a master. No king, no boss, no sovereign. It wasn't disorder. To him, it was the highest, most sophisticated form of order you could get. It's a society organized not by force, but by reason, by voluntary contracts, and by the free association of equals. So here's his game plan, laid out in a few clear steps. First, you get rid of property, that tool of exploitation. Second, you guarantee possession for everybody, the right to use what you need. Third, you let people organize themselves into voluntary groups, for work, for community, for whatever they need. And what do you get? A society where order just arises, naturally, from agreement, instead of being commanded from on high. So, why does some philosopher from the 1840s still matter today? Well, because the basic questions he was asking about ownership, about exploitation, and about power, they might be more relevant now than they've ever been. All right, so let's tie this all together. The big takeaway is that Proudhon forces us to split property, which he saw as theft, from possession, which he saw as freedom. That one simple split is the key to his whole vision of anarchy, which, remember, is not chaos, but a complex, ordered society built on free agreements between equals, without anyone needing to be the boss. And that leaves us with one last, big, provocative thought. Proudhon forced his generation to ask, what is property? Today, in our world of mortgages and stock markets and landlords and the gig economy, maybe that's a question we need to start asking ourselves all over again. What does it really mean to own something? Thanks for joining this explainer.